What do you think, sweetie? As I've mentioned previously in our Q&A, I lived in the Philippines for 2 years, from 2001 to 2003. And I did it because I am a Mormon and I served a mission out there. I'm making this video because my friend Neil from Life of M vlog asked me to talk about my experience as an American in the Philippines. So, my daughter Greta here came up with some questions and she's going to ask me.
Why did you serve a mission?
I served a mission because I was converted to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Part of being converted to the gospel of Jesus Christ is sharing it with other people. In our church, if you want to serve a mission, you fill out the paperwork and then they tell you where to go. You don't choose where you go, and they could send you somewhere in America, or they can send you somewhere in the world.
What was your first expression while entering the Philippines?
My first expression? My first expression was like, oh! You mean my first impression? My first impression, when I got into the country, in the middle of the night, it was like midnight in Manila, and the rainy season had just ended, and it was super humid and super hot, and we were in a suit and a tie. We had someone come pick us up and take us to this house in Manila where the missionaries that are entering the country or leaving the country, they'll stay there for a little bit until they can get their flight, or they'll stay there for a little bit to sleep off their jet lag. And I slept for about 3 days straight before they sent me to my mission, which was in Angeles City, or Angeles City for an American. When I first arrived in Angeles City, my mission president had no idea that we were there. We came as a group, and so we had a bunch of Americans that didn't know the language, pretty much stranded at a bus stop in Angeles City for about 2 hours. We didn't know what to do. We didn't have a phone number to call. We didn't even have a phone. We just kind of sat around, and then some guy came up to us and said, "Hey, I know your friends." And we said, "Okay, go get our friends." And so these sister missionaries from our church found us there, and they had contacted the appropriate people to get us picked up and take us to the mission home. That was my first impression of the country.
What rules did you have to follow?
So as a missionary, we are required to get up at like 6 o'clock every morning and go to bed at 10:30 every night. Anytime we're outside of our apartment, we have to wear a white shirt and a tie. If you're in America, you have to wear a suit. It just depends on the mission or the climate that you're in. And you always have to be wearing your name tag. This is the name tag in English. This is the one that I got in the MTC in Provo, Utah. And then this is the Tagalog version. The name of our church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In Tagalog, it's Ang Simbahan ni Jesucristo ng mga banal sa mga huling araw. Once a week we had a day off called our preparation day, where we could go grocery shopping and stuff. If we went grocery shopping, we still had to be in our white shirt and ties. But if we were going to go out on a hike or do something fun, we could dress in a t-shirt, but we'd still have to put the name tag on our t-shirt so people knew who we were. Other rules: we are not allowed to date while we're in the Philippines. Now, there's many people that try to set me up with their daughter while I was there, and I politely declined. Okay, we weren't allowed to touch animals. That's more of a safety, disease prevention rule. A rule that was particular to our mission was that we were not allowed to eat food that we did not cook ourselves. The one exception to this was we could eat like cookies and crackers that are sealed in a package, and we could drink soda. So the only thing that people were allowed to feed us, what they call a merienda, which is like kind of like a snack or something. But otherwise, we had to cook it ourselves, because in our apartments we had our own water filtering system. we were not allowed to have bikes, and that was more of an issue of traffic is really dangerous there. I wouldn't want to ride a bike there, so we ended up walking a lot. Also, missionaries are always 2x2. We call our partner our companion, and we are not allowed to separate from our companion in any circumstance, and that's for safety and protection. And
What did you do all day?
living in the Philippines for me was not a vacation. I walked around all day with my companion, talking with people on the street, asking if they'd like to listen to our lessons. We spent a lot of time inside people's homes. The area that I went to was full of farms and dirty cities, and there's a lot of poverty there. A lot of the people that we came in contact with were very much so humbled, but they were wonderful people. As we were walking the streets, I came across a lot of little kids. Little kids are really fun because they'll come up to you and they'll tug on your arm hair and they'll say ungoy, 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 because that means monkey. They don't have arm hair in the Philippines.
What was the craziest thing you ever saw?
In the area that I was serving in central Luzon, during Easter, certain individuals will choose to walk around all day and whip themselves on their back, and their back is bleeding during that process, and they'll walk around for miles and miles. Some people carry crosses around for miles and miles. It's quite a scene, very interesting. One time when they're doing this at night, they have a t-shirt covering their face so you can't see who it is. But I just asked the guy that was there, I was like, hey, does that hurt? And he's like, not really.
What was the food like?
As I mentioned before, I was not allowed to eat food unless I cooked it myself or one of my companions cooked it. So unfortunately, I did not get to experience Filipino foods in the fullest. So oftentimes the food that I ate was pretty gross because it was Americans trying to cook Filipino food, and that doesn't turn out very well. Occasionally I had Filipinos that lived inside my house, like Filipino missionaries, but unfortunately none of them knew how to cook very well. Hindi sila marunong magluto.
Were you allowed to go to restaurants to eat foods?
Yeah, we were. The restaurants we went to, they actually had some fast food restaurants there. We'd go to McDonald's once a week. In the Philippines, they call it Macdo. Macdo. Okay? So we ate there, and they had a few Filipino-nized foods, but not very many. The Filipino cuisines that I was able to experience was at the Filipino chained fast food. Like, I ate at Jollibee's, I ate at Cindy's. Cindy's is like a bakery. Cindy's was probably the best Filipino fast food I've ever had.
Because it had halo-halo.
Because it had halo-halo. Cindy's had an excellent halo-halo. Halo-halo is like, I think it's considered the national dessert because it's basically like shaved ice with a mixture of beans and sweetened beans, that is gelatin, coconut shavings, any kind of canned fruit that they can put in there. They'll put ube ice cream in there. They'll add sweetened condensed milk. It's really good. I had the kids try to eat it last night. They gave it a half a thumb.
Henry gave it a thumbs up.
But the foods that I did enjoy eating there was like adobo chicken, adobo pork, lumpia, pancit canton. There was a Filipino in one of my houses that knew how to fry good tilapia. It was delicious.
How did you get around?
I got around by either walking or we had what's called jeepneys there, jeepneys are really decked out small buses, and you basically flag them down, they pick you up, and you ride with multiple people in there. Tell the driver where you need to go, you give them the money. Or we rode in tricycles, which is basically a motorcycle with a sidecar.
How did you learn the language?
Before I went to the Philippines, I spent 2 months in what's called the MTC, or Missionary Training Center in Provo, Utah. And there we pretty much do nothing but study the language that we're assigned to learn. We were learning Tagalog. Tagalog is the national language of the Philippines. And when we got to the Philippines, I was humbled because I realized that or at least I thought the language that I was hearing people speak was not the language that I studied in the MTC. And I went about 2 to 3 months without being able to communicate with people. But eventually, I was placed in a house with 3 other missionaries that were all Filipino, and I was pretty much forced to speak the language. And I learned Tagalog really fast at that point. I would read a lot of Tagalog literature. I'd read the Book of Mormon in Tagalog. The Book of Mormon in Tagalog is Ang Aklat ni Mormon, Isa pang tipan ni Jesucristo. I read this all the way through. That helped me out quite a bit. I also read this book right here, Mga Alintuntunin ng Ebanghelyo. This is, in English, Gospel Principles. Okay. We also, as missionaries, we had discussion booklets back then. We had 6 of them, and they're all written in Tagalog. And I would read these constantly, and that would help me with the language. There's so many languages in the Philippines. You'll go from one town to the next, and they speak a completely different dialect. The dialects in the area that I lived in were Kapampangan and Ilocano. But Tagalog is the national language, so if they went to elementary school, they knew how to speak Tagalog because that's the language they had to use in school. So the language I learned was kind of secondhand. I learned it from people that was their second language, and I learned it from farmers. So whenever I came across someone that was actually from Manila, which is the capital of the Philippines, I had a hard time understanding them because they speak really fast in Manila, and they speak really deep words that I had never heard before.
The lightning round.
Lightning round. So Greta has come up with 20 words in English, and I've got to see if I can give her the Tagalog word for it. I might have some problems here because the language isn't as good as it used to be. Magaling ako mag-Tagalog dati, pero ngayon nahihirapan ako magsalita ng Tagalog dahil wala akong kausap dito sa Amerika. What's the first word?
Spider.
Spider. That's Gagamba.
Head.
Head. Ulo.
Ulo. Shoe.
Sapatos. Shoe is Sapatos. It's Spanish too.
Bed.
Oh, bed. I forgot that one. I'm going to pass on that because I forgot.
YouTube.
YouTube. That's probably just YouTube. I don't think they have a word for that. But U is ka, and tube, like TV, would just be TV.
Church.
Church is Simbahan. Or Simbahan is like the word to describe the actual church building. Iglesia is the word that describes like the organization of a church. So.
Blanket.
Blanket. I don't think they don't really use blankets there because, to be honest with you, every night that I slept in the Philippines was a sweaty night. And we had a fan on. But they did have a kulumbo. Kulumbo is like a mosquito net that you sleep with.
Sock.
Sock. Medyas.
Foot.
Pa'a.
Dude.
Dude is like a slang English term for like a guy. I guess you could call another guy like kaibigan, which means friend.
Cool.
Cool. Well, cool is an expression that we use to say something is kind of awesome or something. And in the Philippines, they like to say Maganda, like Maganda yon. But Maganda means beautiful, but it's the same. They use it to express like, oh, that's awesome. But if you're talking about the temperature being cool or cold, it's Malimig.
Lame.
Lame. I think if they're going to express discontent with something, they just say it's ugly. So they'd say Pangit.
Laugh.
Laugh. It starts with a T. Tawa? I think it's Tawa.
Happy.
Happy. Masaya.
Cuddly.
Cuddly. I know the word for hug, and hug is like Yakap. I forgot.
Flower.
Flower is Bulaklak.
Wood.
Wood is Kahoy.
Tree.
Tree is Puno.
Fire.
I forgot what fire is. All right, so please check out Neil's channel at Life of M. And I'll post the link to their channel down below. And if you guys want to hear more about the Philippines, I'll try not to make the videos so long. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. You can ask questions about my church. You can ask questions about the Philippines. Hope to hear from you. Thanks. Bye.
Subscribe!